I'm here with Alicia Nascimento of New York Communities for Change, and she has been one of the leaders in these viral Wall Street Pete Buttigieg protests. Now, let's just say congrats.
Thank you.
Like, a lot of activism these days doesn't get the viral attention that it deserved, but as everyone's rightly piling on Pete, this has made a huge difference.
Absolutely. I think it happened so spontaneously in the sense that we heard that Pete was coming to New York, and this really was a community-led, very spontaneous effort that we wanted to be able to talk to Pete and have him open up his fundraisers to everyday people rather than having him just hang out in the houses of millionaires and billionaires in New York City. So we thought, why don't we go looking for him? Because the addresses were not disclosed anywhere. And on both of those nights that he was holding fundraisers, one first in the Upper East Side and another in the Upper West Side, we ended up surprisingly finding him. And we went to first we started at two of his billionaire donors' houses in the Upper East Side. One of them is Mark Lasry, who is heavily invested in Puerto Rican debt. And then another one is head of Blackstone, he's one of the main leads of Blackstone, and Blackstone, as many people may know, is heavily invested in the fossil fuel industry. And there's a big global movement, not Blackstone, I'm sorry, BlackRock.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah, there's Blackwater.
Blackwater, BlackRock, right. Blackstone. They all are in the investment industry.
And Pete, by the way, took the no fossil fuel money pledge. So is this a violation of that?
Well, that's the thing. It says you cannot take money from fossil fuel executives. The way that that's interpreted is very
different amongst different candidates.
Absolutely, because if you look at a firm like BlackRock, for example, there's a global movement now calling for them to divest from fossil fuels. There have been a number of employees from BlackRock that have donated to Pete. And there are a number of private equity firms that are heavily invested in the fossil fuel industry that have also donated to Pete. So they're not necessarily fossil fuel companies, but they do invest in fueling the climate crisis. So we would say that that's a violation of the no fossil fuel pledge. We don't know what Pete's campaign would say about that,
though. We know what they would say, and it's interesting because Biden has also tried to walk this same exact line of saying, oh, they just have significant investments in the fossil fuel industry. They're not technically fossil fuel executives. So speaking of Biden, someone who also does big money fundraisers here in New York often with pharmaceutical executives, as we've seen. Why focus your attention on Pete this time?
Well, we have targeted Biden in the past. Biden was having a fundraiser here I believe this was about 2 months ago. And a number of our climate organizers did go to Biden's home, and we targeted him for not supporting Green New Deal. So we're pretty equal opportunity in the sense that we have allegiance to principles and values regardless. And if there's a candidate who's not adhering to that, yet claiming to represent the people and be a progressive in some way, then we're going to call them out.
Wait, is that what it said? He called the cops on us? Justice to the police.
Wait, are you scared of us?
There's no peace.
How did Pete respond?
So Pete, it's funny because we were outside and this was yesterday, 2 days ago, and it was really cold. We're in New York City, it's the winter. And we found his fundraiser, and we were banging pots and pans. And finally, after about, I would say 40 minutes of us banging pots and pans, he came out. And he just gave us a smirk and walked straight to his limo, and this is our thing, that you come to New York, yet you're refusing to speak to everyday people, and you're going straight to your limo as the cops were watching us and making sure that we stood, behind a certain line. And today there was a Washington Post reporter asked him about, how do you feel about these protesters? And he said that apparently we share the same values. And
would you care to respond?
It's funny because our Twitter account responded today. Somebody tweeted that if he shares the same values, then why did they call the cops on us? I think that was a perfect opportunity for Pete to come out and actually speak to us and ask why we were here.
Right.
And it really is because money has a corroding influence on politics. And we don't believe that any candidate that says they stand for working people should be raising money in the homes of millionaires and billionaires. We really believe in grassroots community building and a campaign that's powered by the people. and having big money bundlers and taking money from the fossil fuel industries and pharmaceutical executives is not one of those things. So yeah, I think we gave him that opportunity. He came out, he could have stopped, and he chose not to. And I don't believe that a campaign, again, that's palling around with billionaires is representative of the values of working class people.